everybody. I have spent the last week trying to come to terms with how to work from home and getting used to how it's very different than when I come into school. So I thought I'd treat myself today. I thought I'd put on some special clothes, I'll give myself a shave, and I thought why not use this time to share the rest of this book with you. So we're going to carry on with a boy called Bat, and where we left off in chapter 7 is when Bat had to go to school even though Mum had just brought home a baby skunk and he wanted to spend time with it. So let's see what happens. Chapter 8, 16 Islets. Sometimes Bat wished that Janie went to his school because it would be kind of neat to see her in the hallways and at lunchtime. But most of the time he was glad that his school was something he didn't have to share with her. Janie attended the Robert E. Willett Elementary School, but this was her last year. Next fall she would be going to junior high school. Bat went to a private school. It had smaller classes than the public school, and his parents thought it was a better fit for him, which was fine with Bat. Mr. Grayson was a good teacher who never yelled and who usually let Bat wear his earmuffs if things got too loud. Also, his school, the Saw-Whet School, was named after a type of owl. The main hallway of the Saw-Whet School was a busy place until 8:35 a.m, when class officially started. Until then, it was full of parents walking the younger kids, those in kindergarten and first grade, to their classrooms, and older kids walking themselves, all while the principal, Mrs. Martinez, stood outside of the administration office smiling and being friendly. "Bat!" called Mrs. Martinez, waving and smiling. Bat didn't feel like talking to Mrs. Martinez, so he pretended he didn't see her and slid to the far side of the hallway as he passed. That way she couldn't reach out and rumple his hair. Bat hated it when people rumpled his hair, and Mrs. Martinez loved to rumple hair. She had never yet rumpled his hair, and Bat wanted to keep it that way. Bat liked the main hallway better when all the other kids were in their classrooms. Right now, Luca and Israel, two kids in Bat's same class, were struggling out of their rain boots on the big rubber mat. It wasn't raining, but dark clouds peppered the sky in a way that could mean that recess would be wet. At Saw-Whet School, one of the philosophies was that students should go outside, rain or shine or snow. Bat hadn't worn his rain boots, so he didn't have any that he needed to take off. He didn't carry an umbrella either, because the Saw-Whet School didn't allow them in the hallways of classrooms, which Bat agreed was a wise decision. He skirted around a kindergarten, whose mother was kneeling in front of him, holding a tissue to his nose. "Blow," she said, and he dodged between a couple of big kids, 6th graders, who were tossing a small red rubber ball back and forth. "Balls are supposed to be kept outside," Bat told the slightly smaller of the two big kids, a boy he recognised by the red glasses he wore. "Not this ball," said the boy. "This is a special ball." When he threw the ball over Bat's head to the other kid, a very tall girl, who caught it expertly with one hand and laughed. "It looks like a regular ball," Bat said. "It's not a regular ball," said the boy with red glasses. Bat had a weird feeling in his stomach, like the boy was tricking him. He didn't know what to say. Just then, Luca and Israel came by, without their rain boots. "Hi, Bat," Israel said. "Do you think it will rain?" "Maybe," said Bat. "Well, eventually, yes, but today, maybe." Relieved, Bat watched the two big kids move away towards their classroom, still tossing the ball. "What do you think was so special about that ball?" he asked Israel. "Nothing." Then Miss Kiko came out of the kindergarten room and rang the handbell. It made a gentle tinkling sound, way better than the harsh, painful scream of Janie's electronic school bell system, which Bat had heard last year during a school play he'd gone to watch. To class, it's time for another day." Miss Kiko had a beautiful voice, which is probably why it was her job to announce the start of school. Bat followed Luca and Israel into Mr. Grayson's 3rd grade classroom. "I bought 2 sandwiches for lunch today," Luca was telling Israel, "in case you want to trade cookies for one." "Why would I want to do that?" Israel answered. "I bought my own sandwich." Bat knew why Luca would think Israel wanted to trade. Yesterday, he heard Luca tell Israel that she really didn't like her cream cheese sandwich, and Israel had replied that he didn't like the turkey one his mum always made. "I would trade anything for a cream cheese sandwich," he had said. He listened to see if Luca would remind Israel of what had said, but she didn't. "Probably Israel was just being nice," Bat interjected. "To make you feel better about bringing cream cheese sandwiches to school every day. He probably didn't really want your sandwich." Israel turned around. His face was red and his eyebrows pointed towards each other, making a wrinkly crinkle in his forehead. Dude, he said to Bat. Bat waited for Israel to say more, but he didn't say just more than that one word. Dude. Then Luca started crying, and he shoved past Bat to go back into the hallway. He watched her run into the girls' bathroom. Mr. Grayson came over. He was wearing his bright orange tennis shoes today. Bat liked it when he wore those shoes. It was like he was wearing suns on his feet. What's the problem, friends? He asked. Bat embarrassed Luca, Israel said, really loudly, making Bat wish he had his earmuffs on. They were in his backpack on his back, though. I'm sure you didn't mean to embarrass her, did you, Bat? Asked Mr. Grayson. There were 16 eyelets on each of his shoes. Bat counted. 8 on the left side, 8 on the right side. That made 32 eyelets. Bat, can you look up at my face? Mr. Grayson asked. Bat shook his head. 32 eyelets. His own shoes had half as many. 16 eyelets, 4 on each side of each shoe. Mr. Grayson sighed. Okay, Bat, go sit at your table. Bat wondered if anyone in the class had more eyelets in their shoes than Mr. Grayson. He kept his eyes on shoes as he walked through the classroom. Nope, no one did. Chapter 9. Open Door Baby Cakes Policy. Mr. Grayson was a good teacher for lots of reasons. He let kids eat snacks at their desks if they were hungry. He didn't make students ask permission to go to the bathroom. He didn't believe in making people apologise. You can't make someone apologise, he always said. And he believed in class pets. That's how he put it. I believe in class pets, he had said on the first day of class when he introduced them to Baby Cakes, the class rabbit. Baby Cakes, a white Angora bunny that looked like a giant fluff ball, lived in a pen in the back of the room, near the bookshelves. It was quite a big pen with a gate. If anyone ever needs a cuddle, Mr. Grayson said, Baby Cakes is there for you. And that was the thing that made Mr. Grayson the best teacher Bat had ever had, his open door Baby Cakes policy, which meant that any time a kid needed a cuddle, he or she could go and visit Baby Cakes, no permission needed, no questions asked. Baby Cakes liked carrots and apples and put up with the cuddling. Bat knew the rabbit liked treats better than kids, but he also knew that Baby Cakes was smart enough to realise that the two often went together. The thing about Mr. Grayson's open door Baby Cakes policy was that none of the kids wanted to ruin it by overusing it. Bat was Baby Cakes' most frequent visitor. Israel visited the second most often, and then probably Jenny was third. A couple of months ago, Israel had given Bat a drawing he'd done of Baby Cakes. It was pretty good. Bat usually tried to visit Baby Cakes during recess or lunch, when a visit wouldn't mean leaving group time, but today he didn't think he could wait until recess. Maybe because he missed the baby skunk so much. When Mr. Grayson had everyone pull out the money game, Payday, and that they played on Fridays, Bat slipped away from his table and headed to the back of the room. Today, Baby Cakes wasn't sleeping. She was just sitting in her favourite spot on top of the plastic hutch where she slept. She looked like a white cotton candy. Bat sat close to Baby Cakes and put his hand on her back, just to let her know he was there. He didn't want to startle her. Break up into groups of 4, Mr. Grayson said. Choose a banker and pay everyone $200. For a moment, Bat thought maybe Mr. Grayson was going to let him skip the game and just hang out with Baby Cakes. But then he said, Bat, 5 minutes. Bat didn't want to play Payday. He didn't want to join class in 5 minutes, but the open door Baby Cakes policy didn't mean it was okay to skip stuff that the class were doing. It was one of those unspoken rules that Mum was always talking about. Those things people are supposed to know without having to be told. Bat hated unspoken rules, but he loved the open door Baby Cakes policy. So when 5 minutes later, Mr. Grayson said, Okay, Bat, time's up. Bat reluctantly scooted Baby Cakes off his lap where he had set her and rejoined the class. The games were all arranged. Jenny Pearson had dealt out $200 for Bat Luca. Bat Saw had returned from the bathroom with red-rimmed eyes. She was in a different group. Ready? Jenny asked. I guess, said Bat. And he sat in an empty seat between Jenny and Raymond. Across from him, Corey rolled the dice. Bat sighed. It was going to be a long day. Chapter 10. A very long day. Bat was right. It was a long day. The rain that had been threatening came, and after they ate lunch, the students pulled on the rain gear to splash in the puddles. Bat did not like to get wet. He didn't like it at all. It made his clothes feel sticky and itchy and uncomfortable. Mr. Grayson knew that Bat didn't like to get wet, so even though the saw wet philosophy said that students should go outside, rain, shine or snow, he asked Bat, Would you like to spend recess helping me clear baby cake's enclosure? Yes, said Bat. Mr. Grayson got a trash bag and Bat scooped the old straw into it. Then they laid out a fresh batch of straw. It smelled like summertime and sunshine. Baby Cakes hopped over to the straw and sniffed it. She looks happy, Mr. Grayson said. She looks exactly the same as she always does, Bat answered. Mr. Grayson laughed. Grown-ups were always laughing at things that Bat didn't think were that funny. But it didn't bother Bat very much when Mr. Grayson did it. Julio, a fourth grader, who everyone said was a natural athlete, came into the classroom. Mr. Grayson, he said, Principal Martinez wants to know if you're still going to teach yoga. Sure, Mr. Grayson said. Tell her I'm all ready to start. Then he said, Julio, I think you've grown a foot since the last time I saw you. Julio shrugged. Not that much, he said, but I've grown about an inch since winter break. I'm not surprised, Mr. Grayson said. That was 3 months ago. Bat thought about time as he followed Mr. Grayson to the yoga room and as he sat on the mat in the butterfly pose. 3 months, he guessed, could be a little bit of time or a really long time, depending on who you were. For instance, a monarch butterfly born in the summer lives only about 6 weeks, so 4 months would feel like forever. But a monarch butterfly born in the winter might live for 8 months, so 4 months would be just half of his life. And if you're a boy with a skunk kit that you're only allowed to keep for 1 month, time was sure to pass much, much too quickly. Bat considered telling Mr. Grayson about the life cycle of the monarch butterfly, but the teacher was busy unlacing his orange high tops and getting ready to lead the group in yoga. He decided he would talk about monarch butterflies with Mr. Grayson later. But the right later never happened. After yoga, they went back to the 3rd grade room for reading circle. After reading circle, they worked on their volcano projects, which Bat had not been looking forward to. Groups of 4 kids had to work together to build a volcano. Mr. Grayson called it collaborative art. Bat did not like collaboration. He liked to do things himself. That way, if something didn't turn out the way it wanted to, there was no one else to be mad at. And if he wanted to take it apart and start over, no one could tell him not to. But Mr. Grayson wouldn't let Bat be a part of a group of 1. The problem was that no one else in the group seemed to care as much as Bat did. 3 times before 2:45, when class was finally over for the day, Bat's group said, Mr. Grayson, Bat won't let us help. I don't need help, Bat told Jenny when she complained for the 2nd time. It's a group project, she said. You have to let us help. Israel, who was in Bat's group, kept asking him all kinds of annoying questions like, Hey, Bat, do you think the lava is red enough? And Bat, can you pass me the paste? Bat ignored the lava question. But about the paste, he said, glue works better than paste. The paste gets all weird and flaky when it dries. Okay, said Israel, pass me the glue then. I'm using the glue, Bat said. Things would go much more smoothly, Bat thought, if the other kids would stop asking questions and interfering and just let him get on with the job. By the time Miss Kiko ran the end of day bell from the hallway, Bat's left eye felt twitchy. All he wanted to do was climb into Mum's car and go home to his own room. But when he walked outside, he didn't see Mum's burgundy station wagon. Instead he saw Dad's yellow sports car, and he remembered with a heavy sigh that today was every other Friday, and he wouldn't get to see his own room or the baby kit for 3 long days. If Bat were a man-fly, he wouldn't even live that long. And that's it. Chapter 11 is called Apartment 2A, so we'll see what the rest of that has to entail. Excellent. Well, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to get back to being extremely busy at home, put my feet up and maybe have a little cup of tea. See you all soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.